Okay, so we can move on to our third panel, which focuses on bridging sustainability accounting practice and education. And we are fortunate to have with us Alberto Castilla from EY, Carlos Larinaga from the University of Burgos, Vikas Agarwal from ACCA, and Mercedes Luque from the University of Cordoba. So thank you for joining this final panel and for contributing to the dialogue between academia and practice. And I'm happy to hand over to Julia Benkert, who will moderate this panel.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Juliet, for introducing the panelists. My name is Julia Benkert. I'm from the Center for Sustainability Management at Leuphana University in Germany. And so the topic of this panel is bridging sustainability accounting, education, and practice. So I'm pleased to have two practitioners joining to my right. Alberto Castilla from EY, who is the climate change and sustainability market lead and Spanish country leader at EY, supporting organizations in a range of strategic areas, of course, also including CSR, sustainability, and team management. Next, we have Vikas Agarwal from ACCA, the Association for Chartered Certified. The Association of Chartered Certified Accountants, joining us from the London office today. And Vikas is the Regional Head of Public Affairs for Europe, Eurasia, Middle East, and the Americas, so can really speak for a variety of also political contexts. And he is at ACCA responsible for advising governments on socioeconomic issues such as technology adoption, future talent development, corporate governance, sustainability, and financial inclusion. So all topics that are highly relevant to also what we have been developing within this project. Now, to my left, we have Mercedes Luque from the University of Cordoba. She's an associate professor with long-standing research expertise on sustainability accounting, and in particular focuses on the regulation and evaluation of sustainability reporting. And right next to me, we have Professor Carlos Larinaga from University of Burgos. Now, Carlos has more than 30 years of expertise in researching on the interplay between accounting and the natural environment, with a particular interest on the increasing role that is attributed to accounting technologies in sustainability. So I'm looking forward to a very interesting exchange of perspectives. And given that we've already had a panel representing the academic perspective, we've already had a panel highlighting some of the practical challenges, I already want to turn to you and ask you, maybe because you can make a start, what have you learned this morning that you already want to share with us right now?
Yes, well, firstly, thank you very much for the invitation to speak today. It's been really fascinating to meet the team and also to hear from the experiences this morning. I think that certainly what I've learned today is that there is still a lot to learn as far as the sustainability education journey goes. I think the full integration into university curricula, ensuring that graduates of those programs have the right skills, not just the technical skills, but actually the soft skills, is still hugely important, and we need to focus on that. And then getting those graduates, those aspiring professionals, workplace ready and ready to engage and support their clients and their businesses on sustainability will really complete that circle. And so, just as a sort of quick point on that, I think what we see as a professional accountancy body and our role in working with universities in this space is ensuring that we bridge, as the panel goes, bridge the gap between the academic side of the profession and the practitioner side of the profession, to make sure that we're getting talent in the right place that it needs to be, with the right skills and the right mindset.
Thank you. Alberto, is that a gap you also see and experience at EY?
Sometimes. Yes, there is a gap, but for us, the most important gap is not related to technical issues. is related, and maybe I'm going to talk about that later. It's about the way we think. I think that in these years, when we have talked about sustainability, we have talked about CSRD, about regulation, about the E3, S2. We talk speaking codes, right? And we haven't had the opportunity to talk about value and impact. So our main problem, the main gap for us is that we need to understand the why. And I think we're starting with the what.
Mm.
With the what are the indicators? How do you report? That knowledge is absolutely necessary. But if you lose the big picture, you don't know what you're doing. For us, that's the gap.
Thank you. I think that's a perfect segue to play the ball to Carlos next to me. When we speak of we need to change the way we think. We've also heard that already in the second panel. So that's something to really build on. What are your thoughts on that, Carlos? What needs to happen around the way we think and what academia contributes to that?
Thank you. First of all, thank you for having me here. I mean, we have been discussing a lot about the current situation, about the omnibus regulation and all the stop of this trend that was challenging us in terms of the corporate practices and our teaching. And I have the feeling that, I mean, this is, of course, it's important. I wouldn't deny the importance of this situation. But as an academic, I think that I feel a little bit frustrated when we are just following the lead of the regulators and not producing ideas ourselves. So in that regard, I'm influenced by some authors, like in this case, Ian Thompson, who was mentioned this morning, and John Bevington. They published a paper like 20 years ago, and the title of this paper, I think was in British Accounting Review, was "It doesn't matter what we teach. It doesn't matter what we teach. It does matter how we teach." And so, what matters is, I mean, we have this situation last year. The World Meteorological Organization said that we are like 1.5 above the Paris level. So I mean, we are beyond the agreement in Paris. So this is now. So imagine in 10, 20, 30 years, and the people that we are educating are the people that we will have to deal with those challenges. So we need to develop critical thinking. Is something that was already said this morning. So it's people will need to generate new things. So it's not just learn the current ESR's standard, or it's not learning the current GRA standard. Is building, constructing the minds of the people that will have to deal with those challenges. So,
thank you, Carlos. So when we speak about the importance of how we teach, it strikes me that it's not just about developing critical thinking skills, but it strikes me it's also about a relational component, about thinking differently about knowledge transfer. And I would like to hear your perspective, Mercedes, on that.
So first thing, thank you for the invitation to stay here this afternoon with you and the opportunity to take part in this conversation.
Well, I would like to come back to the question of the double materiality, because I think that this is maybe sometimes a problem. Is seen from the companies. Companies see this key concept as a problem, very difficult maybe to implement, but it's the baseline of this new time. I think that it's very important to take it seriously, because if we don't focus on this, it's almost impossible to achieve a real organizational change. It's not only about choosing one or another materiality, financial or impact materiality, but it's even much more. We need to move from seeing sustainability as an annex in the company, but we need to integrate it into the heart of the business model and in the risk management process. So I would like to remark on this concept because it's super important, and even more now I would like to remark because with the omnibus proposal, if the scope is if finally scope is 1,000, a lot of companies are going to be under this scope, and the European Commission plan to publish a delegated act, and it's going to be the referent, the voluntary small and medium enterprise. This standard don't say nothing about double materiality. So I would like to remark the importance of be real serious with this issue, because with double materiality, European standard make no sense. So this is my.
Thank you. So when we look at double materiality, a really important aspect there are stakeholder concerns. Now, this morning, we've talked quite a bit about the practitioner's perspectives, perhaps the role of auditors, accountants, and the role of academics and students who become alumni. But inherently, sustainability accounting really involves a diverse set of stakeholders, really ranging from regulators to local communities. So one question we haven't addressed yet is, how can these varied stakeholders be engaged more and more effectively involve real-world practice and also academic settings? So perhaps we start with the real-world practice.
Yeah, of course. I think there's a really important role here for the academic ecosystem, and that's really about your engagement with the different sections in society and being that feedback mechanism or that feedback loop to other parts of the chain. So we as a professional accountancy body, we do a lot of surveying of our members and of students and of businesses, but what we don't do is go to, you know, the sort of the high street businesses, right? The small mum and dad type shops around that actually might need support in these areas. And that's something where academia can play a really, really important role to get a much greater voice from the SME sector, from businesses in real life, because you have the expertise and the capacity to do it. And then feed that back up the chain as to what that means for professionals. You know, what should they be doing in response? Alberto, you mentioned value. I mean, look, the point of it's always easy to ask, what's the point of accountants and auditors, right? I mean, hopefully you all know that, but there is a good point. And that is about value. It's about communicating value, protecting value, creating value. And through sustainability, you do a lot of that to a much wider range of stakeholders. You communicate value to society about the impact that you and your business is playing. If you're a water company, you might be bad or you might be good, but you could be demonstrating, you know, the value that you're placing on cleaning up pollutants from streams to ensure that communities downstream aren't affected by it. That's value, and that's what we're asking the profession to do, is to be those communicators. But it's understanding what the needs and demands are of those various stakeholders. I'll give you another example of what we're talking about. We need academia and we need, you know, bright people to be engaging with these groups to understand what behaviours are changing. Because again, that's going to shape a lot of what the profession does. I'll give you an example. We know that younger generations are reusing, recycling a lot more. If you happen to work in fashion or you happen to work in, you know, FMCG, and you aren't particularly good at producing products that can be reused or recycled and have good long life in them, then your products might not be selling as much anymore, right? That's the feedback. That's what I'm talking about, the feedback loop. We know just how impactful social media is in this space, that bad corporate behavior can be incredibly damaging for PR. Understanding what the behaviors in society and different stakeholder groups is really important for us as the sort of a professional body to engage with our members and to tell them this, to say, look, you need to advise your clients, your companies, that they need to change their behaviors in this way because this is what society is saying. So I think that's where actually you start seeing this blending of communications, like not working in silos anymore and saying, look, you need to pass this up the chain and down the chain.
Yeah. Related to stakeholders and to integrate the stakeholder views in a company, I would like to quote to Michael Porter, because he said that an issue is relevant to a stakeholder does not mean that the issue is strategic for the company or even for the planet. Looks like he is criticizing the concept of stakeholders, and it's not. But what he's highlighting is that the key aspect is to identify what is the impact of the stakeholders from a company's perspective. That is the first job they have to do. But when you analyze how the companies have been doing this in the last 20 years, they do it in silos. Yeah, the corporate social or the sustainability department use a specific methodology, use the materiality, use AA 1000 years ago, and draw a stakeholders map, and that model has demonstrated that it doesn't work because it's not integrated in the companies. So if companies exist, it's because they manage the relation with their stakeholders without a map. I didn't pretend. Yeah, but because they already have relation. But maybe we have to go deeper in the stakeholder concept. Not only just saying suppliers, public sector, with names. And when you talk about stakeholder engagement, at what level? Because maybe you have to observe some stakeholders. With others, you have to ask questions. With others, you have to have alliances. And that way of thinking is strategic. So in our view, we have committed a lot of errors in the last 20 years when we talk about stakeholders. I'm talking about companies. And maybe now the current context give us an opportunity to redefine the way we, from a methodological point of view, and in that aspect, I think the academy is very important, how the companies can go forward in this area.
Turning to my academic colleagues, was Michael Porter right after all?
Sometimes.
Yeah, so thank you. I mean, we in academia, we have been studying stakeholder theory for decades. And in this area, sustainability was mentioned in the case of the climate. And, who is which is the stakeholder representing the climate? So there are it's quite problematic. I agree with you that probably the main, some of the most important aspects are not represented by the stakeholders. And then, of course, there is the issue of the power of the different stakeholders, etc. And as it comes to the university, to the academic field, we also have stakeholders, and we are, interested in engaging with stakeholders, and this roundtable is about the gap between I understand about the gap between academia and the profession, and the need to engage academics and professions in sustainability accounting. And I think that I don't see that much gap in terms of the engagement between academia and the profession. I see a gap in terms of what we want to do and what is possible, what is achieved in reality. And this, so for example, in the university, it was mentioned this morning that in the university you have like the comfort of teaching the same things. There was Jose Manuel who was explaining this situation, and the inertia, the possibility to change institutions and to introduce aspects that are more relevant nowadays, those silos. But I'm quite optimistic about the engagement between academia and the profession, and I was thinking about this roundtable. I was remembering in the 1990s or even in the 1980s, there was Roger Adams from ACCA, who was together with Rob Gray and other people. They were establishing this field. I mean, we are talking now about sustainability reporting because people like them were establishing the field. And there was a guy from ACCA and then a guy from academia who were establishing the field and creating the reporting awards, there were the environmental reporting awards, and then they changed to sustainability reporting awards, and there are many other examples. This project, Account4GreenEco, is also an example of the engagement between academia and the profession to develop accounting education. And there are many other examples. If we have time, maybe later we can talk about examples of engagement between the profession and the university.
So, well, I think that we have shared some interesting ideas, no? And that I also think that sometimes companies are thought as the main actor, no? And we ask companies all the time to engage with the different stakeholders, no? But I think that also stakeholders need to want to collaborate with companies, and not always I think that this happens. So I want to say this because I'm not going to say that some stakeholders don't want, but the relation is still a little difficult. For example, I was thinking the public administration is a very important stakeholder for the company. Is the public administration considering what the company are doing? I'm not sure for some topics. For example, I was thinking in the public procurement, no? We have some directive for the sustainability report, for prepare the sustainability report. And also we have some directive for the sustainability public procurement. And there is not a clear connection between them. So not always is the company, no, that need to improve, but also there are all the other stakeholders, and the public administration has a exemplary role, no, in this. So it's only to add something different, no, to the panel.
Thank you. I think I would like to stay with that topic of stakeholders for one more moment, because what really emerges throughout the day already is that perhaps we also need to have a different image of stakeholders, from like passive recipients of information, of reporting, to groups and individuals with very important agency. I think it was also Giovanna who mentioned this morning well, it's not just companies reporting about their sustainability or unsustainability, but there are also other stakeholders reporting about the organization, very likely in different ways. And we've also spoken about that companies cannot do it on their own when it is about really addressing grand sustainability challenges. So we've talked about how alumni, young professionals need collaboration skills. So I would like to dare the thesis that is a time to really view stakeholders as potential collaborators to overcome sustainability challenges rather than threats that either demand compliance or could be threatening in some way, which is, I think, mainly also how Michael Porter would have seen stakeholders. So the question is how, can that different agency-based view of stakeholders perhaps promote sustainability activities?
Problem with this micro.
It's okay.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah. Yeah. I think we shouldn't talk about reporting when we talk about stakeholders, because I think it has been a big mistake in the sustainability field when I talk about companies. And normally in a company, first you think and understand the impact of something. After that, and for that, you take a decision. After that, you change something, you transform. And in the last moment, you try to convince. In sustainability, we have worked in the opposite way. First, we try to convince that we as companies create impact. And for that, we look for a standard. And we start to work with GRI. And with other standards. The objective at that time, maybe we didn't talk about that, is to demonstrate that companies are good for the society. And in fact, they are good. And in fact, that was important, right? But imagine the sustainability guy in that company, right? When regulation comes. Now, we have been talking about regulation and about the standards the last 3, 4, 5 years. In Spain, 7. Yeah. And now with CSRD, with the ESRSs, we know that is not a reporting directive. That is not only a reporting directive. It's not only that because, as you know, you have to think about the topics that are important for your company. You have to report your objectives. It's more than a reporting directive. And so we say these regulations, it's going to help you to change your business model. Okay. That's a lie. That is not happening. Sorry, I like to. Okay, take into account that. No, in the majority of companies, when something comes from regulation in the first year, they take it like the, how do you say in English, las etapas del duelo? Stages of
Pass away.
pass away, yes. First denial, yeah. No, I say, how many data points I have to report? No, that's not possible. After anger, right? Yeah, I'm blessed. Depression, negotiation, acceptance. So we will see the changes in 5 years. I'm being a lot of, I'm trying to provoke, okay, taking work from this. But if we start with compliance and we try to start with convince, we are not focusing on the why. Yeah. So that's one thing. Sorry, maybe I'm going to talk much more now, and I will talk less later. So, but please think we are not in the year 2025. Imagine what were you doing 20 years ago. Someone was at the university or maybe at the school, 20 years ago. Okay, what were you 20 years ago? Imagine that 20 years ago, I tell you that in the year 25, in China, 60% of the new cars are going to be electric. Possible. Impossible. 20 years ago, renewable energy. Oh, that's expensive. 20 years ago that we were going to be able to buy a solar panel with internet. A vegan shoes. Vegan shoes, you can buy vegan shoes. Ecological wine that is growing 25% a year. I hate it. So my point is that those examples demonstrate that the way they act is because the way they think. They first understand, the context, and someone decided in the year. The first Tesla was sold in the year 2007. Decide there is a market or there is anything, and after that, change. And I think that Tesla doesn't care a lot about reporting and maybe other things. But sorry, I take much more time.
I would like to come in the defense of sustainability reporting.
It's my business.
Yeah, because this is very interesting because it's a central point in our thinking about accounting, but also in our research, in our accounting research. And I'm more and more thinking that accounting is this is already established. It's not neutral. Accounting is not neutral, and accounting is is imperfect. But financial reporting is also imperfect. It's incomplete. There are things that are not there. How can you measure things? You are always guessing how to measure things. Also, financial reporting, and you have the profit and loss account, which is different than the value-added statement. Why the profit and loss and not the value-added statement? Is there are different things, different ways to think about the organization. So accounting is always imperfect. It's always accountants. We like to investigate and to discover new angles. So in that way, accounting is generative. Is allowing us to discover new things. So if we think of sustainability reporting in this way, we would see that sustainability reporting is little by little changing the language, changing I agree with. There is this use of at the end of the process presenting the report to try to convince that you are good, but if we think of sustainability reporting in a broader context, I think that it is changing the language and it's changing the way we think about organizations. So in that regard, yeah, probably not the first year, probably not the second year, but in a broader context, it's changing something. And so I think that there is a point about defending sustainability reporting.
I totally agree with you. See, today, yes, companies are tired to talk about reporting.
Yeah.
Maybe because the regulation comes and goes.
Yeah.
And today there's some new news. But in my view, reporting in a problem related to sustainability, we are creating the language of sustainability. And that is not important, that is crucial. That's my point.
Yeah, I think on that point there, I think the sustainability report is just a means to an end, right? It's a way of comparing an apple with an apple. It shouldn't be taken anything more than that because it's in how it's used, but it's the process by which you get there that really matters, and that really comes down to your engaging with stakeholders. one of the precursors to the ISSB was the Integrated Reporting Committee. The integrated bit is the key word there, is within an organisation. So internally, it's how do you actually bring information together in a meaningful way? Well, in order to do that, you need to communicate with your other stakeholders. You need to actually understand them, understand what their drivers are, their objectives, their aims, their values, and help them on that journey to get that into a form of words that will appease your shareholders, your board, your regulators, and so on and so forth. But it's the process that really matters. Now, again, coming back to sort of the accountant's perspective, and what we're saying is actually accountants, you're not just there to do the numbers anymore. It has been true for many, many years. Right? You don't just go and plug some things in and put it out and your job is done. The expectation on the accounting profession, on accountants as internal accountants, as your advisory firm or others, they're expecting a lot more from you. And so when we think about this, we think about, we came up with this 7 quotients some time ago. Basically, the skills that you need, the behaviours you need to demonstrate to really add value as a professional strategic accountant. And one of those was creativity. So we're looking at telling the story in a way that's going to be meaningful to people. Obviously, communication, huge issue. And that's why when we see cross-department or cross-school sustainability courses that we see at many universities now, where they bring in engineers and biologists and everybody else, it's really important to communicate across those different competencies, or those technical competencies. So that communication, and then vision. So going back to your point about Tesla or China solar panels, the report is a snapshot in time. It's the here and now. We need the profession, accountants, to be thinking about where are you going to be in 5, 10, 20 years? Like, what is the art of the possible, and how do you get your company, your clients to that point in time? No one's asking you to be, the technical scientist that develops a new solar panel or a new car, but you've got to understand where your organisation is going on its journey and help it get there. And that part of it is around being able to analyse data and market trends. Part of it's around understanding, improving efficiencies, regulatory risk and engagement, diversifying supply chains. That's the sort of stuff that we're expecting the profession to be doing and delivering. And that again means engaging with different stakeholders. Society, there's probably too much of a barrier between corporates and society, and when they do clash, it's often for negative reasons. A brick through your window, for example, or paint on your bank, or actually crushing your share price through some bad PR. That's way too late in the day to be engaging with that societal group. There are lots of charities, NGOs, third sector companies. It's interesting, actually, it's great that we're having this conversation today in the middle of COP, right? And if anyone's been to COP before, it's really interesting. It's not just businesses turning up. It is societal groups. It is protest. It is young people. It is indigenous groups talking about, involve us in these conversations, because if you don't, you're going to find the negative side of it a bit later on. So when we think about stakeholders engaging, how we bring them in, it's about using your sort of emotional intelligence and your vision and your creativity and your willingness to communicate and your ability to go internally within your business and speak to different partners across the business and understand what's going on with them and what their risks look like, what their opportunities look like, and how do you actually make that happen.
Using the example of the recent COP meeting, I think it just shows that there is a lot of room for improvement when it comes to the engagement of diverse stakeholder voices. So, what roles do you see for higher education to play to really close the gap on this, and perhaps across higher education and professional association? What is your perspective on that?
Well, regarding this question, I think that is a key point. For me, maybe the most important one, because, we are learning, all of us, not only the student that we have in the classroom, no? We are learning to implement the sustainability accounting, because it's a new field, and we need time, no? But even the financial accounting, that is a more mature field, as Carlos said before, is incomplete. And so we have always new opportunities to improve this, no? And I think that a good example of a platform, not this platform, no? An academic platform, another academic platform that is an opportunity to do it is the master coordinated by Nicolas Garcia in the University of Burgos. The master in sustainability reporting and assurance, no? Because I think that is a clear example to play a very key role in bridging practice and university for advancing sustainability accounting education. And I think that the interesting perspective in this master is that the master tried to put in contact university and practice. In fact, some of the lectures are practitioners. In the master participate professionals. So I think that we have an opportunity to bridge this gap and train specialized profile here in this place we have some students of the master, no? So I think that this is an example that they are interested in this and turn the classroom into a shared space for academics and professionals that that connect with the necessity of the field. I think that this is very important, and we need to teach and practice sustainability accounting.
Continue. I also think that research is important, and it is I was thinking in the standard setters. When the standard setters don't want to do something, they say, "Oh, this is a matter for more research." No? So yeah, and it's not that we are not doing something, but I truly think that, as Mercedes said before, the students are learning, but we need to learn, and we need to train PhD students who will be the lecturers and the professors in the future. So I think that this area is very important, without forgetting, of course, the engagement with the professional different stakeholders. And I think that in that respect, so I will say, okay, of course, education, research, engagement with different stakeholders. And I think that something, maybe a stakeholder, I will say, that is missing, or not missing from the conversation, but is not that visible, is science. I think that nowadays, with this, there is a book that was published recently, which is called Science Under Siege. So is this denial discourses, and so I think that it's very important to bring science, a dialogue between science, companies, accounting, stakeholders. So I think that this is really crucial, and especially nowadays. I'm not sure we can provide assurance, which will be another job for assuring companies, but something like that. It's like we need. I mean, there is no way we can deny climate change. There is no way we can deny modern slavery. This is happening, and so and science is demonstrating this. So how can we put together everything and trying to motivate from that some action?
Yeah, I might. This is a really good point. Actually, I think it leads on. I mean, just as a request, I think if you're going to be doing research, AI assurance would be a really big topic, because, and I say that because it comes down to policy. Now, I'm not an accountant. I'm not an auditor. I'm an engineer by background, but I don't do engineering. I've done it. I speak with policymakers, and they want good, hard evidence, and they want it quickly, and they want it in a language that they can understand. And one of the problems we have is that, for better or worse, it's your own judgment of this, industry and different geographies are outpacing the research and the sensible regulation, and they are going to lead the way on these things at the sort of negatively when there's enough, when the research finally materializes and says, you know, oh, this is bad, we shouldn't be doing this. It will have already happened, and the genie is out the box or at the bottle, whatever you want to describe it as. You need to be able to keep up with this stuff, and that's really, really important. And you've got to put it in a format that policymakers, wherever they might sit, can understand. And that really depends on the so what. I think not a criticism of any by any means, and this is why dialogue, as you said, is really important, is making sure that academic work doesn't stay in the world of academia, but it is useful, it has utility if it is put in a way that policymakers can actually utilize. You know, I was given a piece of advice a long time ago when I was a young civil servant, and that piece of advice was, the more senior you are, the less words you use and the larger the font, right? Because they don't have time. So if you're speaking to the most senior person in the room, 5 words at size 48 font, something like that, because they just don't have the time to process it. So tell them exactly what they need to know then and there. And that, I think, is where academia can, you know, do better. You know, it's not a criticism, it can do better, but it is working with organisations like us to bring that information. It might not be in the final format, it might not be in this lovely published piece of work, but bring it as soon as you possibly can. Let's get it into a format that can engage with policymakers and start shaping and forming things. Again, you know, CSRD is a really good example, and I think it was, personal opinion, was done the wrong way around. It should have started with a small number and got bigger.
Yeah.
What's happened is we've got, you know, too big a number because policymakers don't understand that sort of, you know, reality, I suppose, of it. And so, you know, it's slightly too late now, but they could have taken the academic research. So this many companies are doing it now, and this is what performance looks like. Let's start expanding it and growing it. But that's the sort of thing that we need to see more coming up in academia. It's too late once, you know, real politics has got involved and overtaken things.
Yeah, from my point of view, there is something that is critical. And then please, at least I'm missing that, at least in Spain. And if in Spain it's not happening in other countries in Europe related to this. And I'm going to explain why. The use of data. In Spain, we have data since the year 19. How has evolved the gender gap between the year 2019 and today? What happened with the emissions? We have the data. What happened with the accident? So we have data, and I think we are not using the data from an academic perspective. In Italy, we're using the data. We analyze I guess 35 companies, only the biggest, and we publish the results and are in our website if you enter, and a report. But for me, that data is an incredible source for the academic investigations, and can be very useful in days like these days, because only with Spanish data we can demonstrate that the Spanish law was not perfect, but has had a very good impact. We have the data. So for me, that's the main point. Taxonomy, what is the average deviation by subsector of the taxonomy indicators? I don't know if 52%. We have analyzed 1,400. That what is telling us that number is there's room for investigation and research.
And there is research. Sometimes the problem is that the research is published in journals that are not read by professionals, and we talk to each other, you know. So there is research about the effect of the Spanish law. There is research about the taxonomy being published or probably something about taxonomy. Yep.
Maybe we need to speak more.
Okay. But I'm glad that you say that the Spanish law had a positive effect, because I was I appeared before the Commission on the Economy of the Spanish Parliament to explain the politicians what was the impact of having, for example, assurance, or what was the impact of having 500 or 250 employees as the minimum number. And I explained to them what was the impact of having one option or the other option, and they decided to for example, to go for assurance, and they decided to go for, in a second step, for 250 employees, because I gave them the number of companies that were affected if they were for 1,500 or so. Yeah, I mean, this is, I was thinking about this example of engagement between academia and stakeholders and the professor.
Thank you. So what if this again highlights is that there's not just a need around the development of professional competencies and skills that we're also really attempting to address with this project and the platform, but we are facing some real institutional challenges also when it comes to the relation between academia and society, and academia and other stakeholders. Around, how do we communicate the outcomes of research and the platforms we are incentivized to use and that we are using. So I would also like to use this opportunity to open the floor to questions. We have some online or we have one from the audience right there. I think you have the roving microphone. Could you please go back to me?
I have two issues for proposing to the panel to debate. The first one is related to sense, as you mentioned. They are the new shareholders, not the stakeholders. In brief, they will be the new shareholders. And then they buy recycled clothes, and then pay an overprice for getting, for instance, eggs from wild hens. So these are the new shareholders and stakeholders. And the other issues regarding artificial intelligence. One of my students making his final dissertation, he's an engineer, on self-driving, and he's proposing a deep learning model based on data on climate, on geographical distance, and so on, linked to insurance, for making this self-driving. So how sustainability accounting will address these new issues that arise in the artificial intelligence field? Thank you.
Can I address the first one? So you said about the new shareholders being ones that behave differently, consume differently. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think consumer choice is changing. Like, consumer behavior is changing, and that changes with generations. And so companies, legacy companies in particular, have to be very, very attuned to that. And it's not just about marketing; it's about actually engaging with that consumer base. I also forgot to mention, everyone in this room can download an app right now and start trading listed equities, fine crypto, but the listed equities. Everyone in this room can do it. Probably within about 30 minutes, you can get set up and start trading. The access to the ability to trade listed equities is greater than it's ever been before. And that comes with it a huge number of sort of problems. Shareholder activism is increasing, right? We see that. And you've got people that can buy shares incredibly quickly, and that's changing behaviors as well. That companies have to be very alive to the fact that, you have got nearly enough 24-hour trading in some jurisdictions. You've got, the ability to trade on the go. It's not done by just legacy banks anymore. These are the sorts of things that you need to be thinking about. On the AI point, and I don't profess to be an expert, when we think about sustainability, you have to think about the the broader sense of sustainability. So the societal side of things as well. You know, AI and self-driving cars. Okay, you need to think about the job losses, the job creation. You need to think about the sort of the trolley experiment. You know, these are all considerations around new technologies that need to be factored in. It's not just for regulatory things. It's because of it's the reputational risk that will come with getting this stuff wrong, and that fits, I think, quite nicely into sustainability. Is how sustainable is your business model, not just environmentally, but if X happens or if Y happens, as part of your risk management approach and everything else. So it's requiring people to think in a very, very different way, and not to be, you know, siloed, again, to be using that sort of word, like to start thinking about who might take a view and opinion on this stuff. And I think actually with ESRS, where you have double materiality, that includes everything from, you know, workplace learning through to job losses and retraining and everything else, those are factors that are considered in this space.
I agree with you. The first question related to artificial intelligence. I don't know. Yeah, I'm in the group of that in a way we are trying to investigate about the use of artificial intelligence and sustainability. I can say only that the impact is going to be huge. For example, in one company that used 90 people to publish their sustainability report, now it's able to do it in 18 minutes. And our opinion is that we need people in our company, EY, experts in understand the why we do things. But after, because we are going to have agents that are going to help us to do it, but only if we know what we have to do. That's why probably we are going to teach to all our people in philosophy, music. I know sounds strange, but humanidades, because we think that is going to be much more important in the short term. I don't know. I think I'm not answering your question, but it's maybe it's too complex for me at least. English more.
Can I just add one more thing about the profession, and this is perhaps the love of the profession, is that ethics is embedded in the profession. One of the very few professions, global professions, you know, being a doctor, nurse, lawyer, accountants and auditors have that ethical thread all the way through it. And lots of new technologies and new industries and new jobs, they don't have it embedded. So you will have to be there. You have to be that compass, that lodestar for ethics and ethical behaviours. So it's really, really important that the profession plays that role.
And perhaps I can also add something here. We recently had a panel at Leuphana University that was looking at the intersection of AI and sustainability. And Professor Stefan Schaldegger, who is also a project member of this project, said, well, something that AI is lacking is empathic intelligence. Mm-hmm. It provides a very specific type of intelligence that is mainly analytical, but it cannot relate to ethics. It cannot answer the why questions, and it does not have empathy. And as we've also heard this morning, I would say interrelational skills rather than soft skills and interpersonal skills to those things that we have talked about. Empathy and ethics are key to, you know, effective sustainability accounting, are key to having companies, driving towards sustainability. And so I think we are in for a very interesting development. So I'm conscious of time. Maybe I'll give you the opportunity if you have anything more to add.
On this, just I would like to mention that there is an expert, at least one expert in shareholder activism in the room. So maybe she wants to add something, but I'm not an expert. And in terms of artificial intelligence, I I don't have a clue. But if you look at history, there are like, I don't know, the invention of the computer, the personal computer, and transform the labor market. And we don't have typewriters anymore, but we have other jobs. So it will transform the job market, but I can't think about catastrophic effect.
So, well, just to finalize, we have been speaking several times about the engagement, no? And I think that artificial intelligence has a risk of producing superficial engagement, no? And we see that it is very important, the engagement. And also, I think that this, if we don't apply ethics in the use of this artificial intelligence, we can have problem of symbolic compliance, fragmented accountability, and superficial engagement. So be careful with this.
So we certainly are on a pathway of transformation. And with that, I really want to thank the panel, Alberto, Vikas, Mercedes, and Carlos for joining the panel this afternoon. I want to join the audience here in the room and online. And with that, we have the closing words from Mika, I believe. So thank you.